Okay, so we are streaming. Let me just make this a little smaller so I can see the chat as it comes up. All right, I'm also going to share real quickly. Give it a minute to let everyone join. I think everyone's still getting used to, including me, the time. All right, share to Facebook. Go back over here. All right. Hey, Ashley. Hi, Blanca. It's a little bit bigger. Okay. There, I think I can see everything. Okay. Thanks, ladies, for joining. When I left, Hannah was still sleeping. I laid her down early because Sundays are tough for us. So on Mondays, she's ready to go down pretty quickly. And she was going on a 4-hour nap when I left. So that just shows you how much Sundays wear out my kids. So Sundays wear me out too, most of the time, because the babies don't sleep very well on Saturday night. So I got my Dunkin' Donuts. I was telling, I did a tweet about it. Hey, Day, how are you? Right, Day? I did a tweet about it. So I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but my local Dunkin' Donuts, they know me by name now. And they know how I like my drinks most of the time when I go through. So yeah, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I like my Dunkin'. I actually prefer their coffee over Starbucks. Starbucks coffee tastes very burnt to me sometimes. So I prefer Dunkin' Donuts coffee. It's a lot more smooth in taste. And they have the pumpkin swirl, which I really like, but they were out. So if you like Dunkin' Donuts coffee, one thing that I like to do is I like to get the coconut and caramel. So what I get in my coffee is just cream and then coconut and caramel. It's not together, it's individual flavors, but it tastes really good. It tastes like the coconut caramel Girl Scout cookies. I don't know if you know the ones that I'm talking about. So it's really good. Tastes really good. That's my favorite. I was going to get the pumpkin swirl, which is like 4 pumpkin swirl and 4 hazelnut and then cream, but they were out. So alas, they were out of pumpkin. So I had to get my normal coconut caramel. So that is what it is. Hey, Chanello. Okay, so I wanted to start out by reading a really, really good article that I found on Facebook. It was floating around. I think it was very, very spot on with what marriage is in reality and not what marriage is shown to be on Hollywood and different movies and things. And she has been married 25 years. So almost the same as me. I will be married 22 years this coming April. So just a few years behind her. But first of all, I've counseled many women throughout the years. And one thing that I have run into is a spirit of discontentment when they've been married for a number of years. So I'm talking, usually this is after 10, 15 years, they kind of fall into the spirit of discontentment. And I feel like this is usually between the ages of 30 and 50. Women take a good hard look at their life because maybe they aren't in the spot that they imagined in their teen years, in their mid-20s. They look at their kids and they think, this is not how I wanted my kids turning out. This is not where I thought I would be. I thought I would have done this and this and this and this. Maybe they're first generation Christians and they haven't been shown how to raise kids. So they did the best with the knowledge that they had, but their kids don't act the way their preacher says that they should act. They actually have a will and they sass at times. They become angry at their kids, angry at their husbands, and they become miserable. How they think is manifested in how they act. The home becomes a war zone and no one is happy. I read an article the other day that really resonated with me, and it's one that I believe is spot on. So I'm going to read it now. Hey, Beth. So she says, the author of this, and I think her name is, I had it, but it's like when it printed off, it didn't show it. So this is not my article. These are not my words. I want to put that disclaimer out there. I would have to look it up on Facebook. Maybe I can put a link to it in the description so I can give credit to where credit is due. I know I hate it as a writer when I write something, and I've actually seen this before a lot. People copy and paste what I write, and then they share it, and my name is not on it. And so, as a writer, that's something that you do put a lot of time and effort into it. I would say on average, for every long post or blog post that I write, I spend a couple of hours on it, just going over it, fine tuning it, correcting mistakes, whatever. So I did not mean to go off that rabbit trail, but I will try to post the link to it because her name did not pronounce, so I can't tell you who did this, but it is not my words. So she said, if I could go back and sit down with myself 25 years ago and speak some truth into that young, naive bride-to-be, this is what I would tell her. Hollywood lied. This person is not going to complete you, even if they had you from hello. Our society teaches us how to go to school, get a career, plan for retirement, and how to get married, but they never taught us how to have a good marriage or stay married. So all that time, money, and crazy energy you are putting into planning that perfect day, put that and then some into planning the kind of spouse you want to be. There are going to be times when you are that couple who fights all the time, goes to bed fighting, and you may cry yourself to sleep with your head face down in the pillow, asking yourself for the 10,000th time, did I marry the wrong person? You are not just marrying that hot, funny, amazing personality. You are marrying their insecurities, mommy and daddy issues, flaws, and bad breath. This person has the propensity to bring unspeakable joy to your life, and they will, and deep pain, and they will. There are going to be times when you want to walk out. You may even pack your bag or call each other names that are not found in the Bible. That's okay. Just know you are not alone, and there are many spouses who had to go unpack a bag 1,000 times or two. The whole marriage is 50-50 thing, and marriage is give and take is a joke. There are going to be seasons in your lives where one of you may be spiritually, emotionally, or physically not able to cope with life, and your spouse may have nothing left to give. When this happens, thank God, because you are now in a position and posture to learn the real meaning of marriage, servanthood. So get up, grab a towel and basin, and wash your spouse's feet when they least deserve it. Because when you do that, this is when you are going to see a miracle, not only in your marriage, but your heart. Marriage was not designed to just bring us happiness. It will also make us holy if we will let it. You will get much more accomplished on your knees in prayer than in your spouse's face demanding your own way. And just for the record, God is not always looking for who needs to change, but who is willing. Strong marriages do not just happen. They are fought over, cried over, prayed over, and turned over to the only one that can teach us how to become one. I know you were dreaming of a fairy tale, but the reality is you and your spouse are going to war. You have an enemy that despises marriage, and he will stop at nothing to try to convince you both to betray and break each other. So while you are picking out that perfect dress, grab some combat boots and a sword and be ready to fight. Ephesians 6. And if you do happen to betray or deeply wound one another, please remember this. As ugly as this looks, as big as this feels, your God is bigger. Your God is able. Your God is able to do more than you can think, ask, or imagine in your marriage. Ephesians 3:20. So invite him in, keep him at the center. Never give up and fight with everything you have, because you serve a God who specializes in breathing dead things back to life, making all things new, and restoring beauty from ashes. So I love that article. I wish I would have written it. I did not write it, though. I will put credit to the author in the link below. And then she did put a disclaimer because it was getting shared an awful lot, and you probably had the naysayers come on and start talking about abusive situations and all those things. And she said, this post is not promoting abuse in any way or trying to provide therapy in any way. If you are in a situation that is toxic, unhealthy, or abusive, seek counseling from a trusted professional right away. And I would definitely agree with that advice. I have never encouraged women to stay in a home where they are being beat up on, they are being slapped around, they are being just basically terrorized. Them and their children are being terrorized. I always tell them to seek help, tell the pastor, trusted friend, get help, get legal help if they need to, and definitely go to a safe position. So I agree, Ashley. I have seen God transform some horrible marriages into something beautiful. God changes hearts. And I do agree. And I think, a lot of it, the article was so true in what it was saying, that the nitty gritty day-to-day stuff is where real love is. It's not in this fake Hollywood, the knight rescues the princess or rescues the damsel in distress and they live happily ever after. Life isn't a fairy tale. And marriage isn't either. It's a lot of work. You are going to war. Satan would love nothing more than to see your home broken up, your kids forever, shook to the core by divorce and what comes with divorce and what comes with infidelity and the problems that causes. So I personally have come to a place in my marriage where most days are sunshine and roses. We both get stressed out at times, but for the most part, we've learned not to take it out on each other. He accepts me the way I am. I accept him the way he is. I did struggle with discontentment early on in my marriage. It would have saved me a whole lot of grief if I would have just accepted him as he was and stopped trying to change him, especially stop trying to change him into this ideal that I thought. When we get married, especially if we marry, like I did, a pure, godly young man, we tend to get it into our head that he is just this Superman of just perfectness, of perfection. He is, he doesn't sin, and he's not like all the other men out there. He's godly and he's spiritual, and he's always going to do things all right and always going to make the right decisions and always going to lead us the right way. And the truth of the matter is that's false. No man is perfect. Every man has his faults, just like we as women. No woman is perfect. Every woman has her faults too. And when you get to the place where you accept everything about your spouse, whether that's the great stuff about him and the bad stuff about him, you come to a much better place in your marriage where you can just freely love without expecting the impossible as far as like changing their personality, changing who they are. Most men are not going to change once you marry them. They're pretty much stuck in what they're stuck in. So be careful when you fall in love. So how do we get to the point where we as women are content with the family that, one, we have chosen, which would be our husband, and two, we have been given, which would be our children? So let's go over some ways. Hello, Zoya. Nice to have you from India. Very nice to have you. I really like this time because I feel like I do get more international listeners. So that's exciting to me. It was a little bit too late internationally when I had it at 7 p.m. Central. So welcome from India. But let's talk about loving your husband. Who is the one that you chose? You did have a choice in this, I'm assuming, unless you're in an arranged marriage. Most of us chose our husband. But one of the things that I often tell women is remember the whys of why you fell in love with him. Make a list if you have to. Why did you fall in love with your husband? What were some of the reasons that you fell in love with him? And write those down. What I was looking for in a man was pretty basic. Before I got married, I was a Christian girl raised IFB my entire life, and I wanted a pure guy. That was one of my requirements. Obviously, number one, he needed to be saved. He needed to love the Lord. Number two, I wanted him to be pure because I had saved myself. So I wanted someone who had saved themselves for me. And I don't think there's anything wrong with putting that stipulation, especially if you've tried your whole life to be that way. Hey, Sarah. So those were mainly my stipulations. I also wanted someone who was outgoing. My dad was just a really outgoing, fun-loving guy, and I was really drawn to that same personality. So I kind of wanted someone like that. Now, my husband and I, both being firstborns, are actually quite similar. I was the oldest of a semi-large family, 5 kids. He was the oldest of 5 kids. So we had similar backgrounds. He was raised a PK, which was a little different. But I was raised in church my whole life. So we had similar backgrounds as far as being raised in church our whole lives. and we just clicked really well. Even to this day, we understand each other really well. We understand how each other's minds work. It's funny that Sarah joined. I have always been fascinated by personalities and different personalities. All of you that have watched this for a while know this. I often recommend taking the love language, reading through the love language book and taking the love language quiz when with your spouse, and just it kind of shows where each of you is coming from, ways that you feel loved, ways you don't feel loved. Well, Sarah told me about, it's like a personality test. It's on truity.com, and it's I don't even know how to say it, Enneagram test. And basically it's a personality quiz. So you go through, and they claim that most personalities can be divided into 9 different personalities with other personality traits that aren't as strong as that one personality trait. So I was not surprised that my husband and I scored exactly the same number, which was an 8. And even our sub numbers were the same. So I was not surprised that we scored the same. And even when I was reading about how 8s work together in a relationship, it fit us like a T. So it was really funny seeing that. And I'm not saying, I don't like to just put people in boxes, but it was very interesting. And then my kids were having fun with it, and they even took it. And it was funny seeing, I pretty much nailed their personalities before they took it, reading through, but it was funny seeing that what they answered, it generated the same results as I thought it would just through reading through it. So what are some good ways to better understand someone when you are quite different emotionally speaking? I would do the personality test. I honestly would. I think, anything can have, I know a lot of people are against different things like the personality test. And then even there's another one, Myers-Briggs test. But I think as long as you take everything with a grain of salt and you don't go too far with it, it'll be fine. I do think it's helpful to kind of figure out where people are coming from, because we're all different. God gave us all different personalities, and seeing where people are different in different areas as far as how they approach things emotionally, how they don't approach things emotionally. I think it really gives you a clue into seeing a little bit into their brain and how they work and how they function. So I think it's good to see that. And with my husband and I, we are both we're analytical and logical. We're not really emotional, but we feel emotion. I feel very strong emotion, and that comes across, I believe, in my music and my writing, but I try to control my emotion very well. I'm not a crier. I don't have emotional outbursts a lot. I try to keep that under control. Spiritual gifts test, yes, that might work too. The personality test definitely kind of gives you a look into what makes us tick, I think, a little bit more. But hey, Joyce, and hey, Anne's Augustine. Yes, definitely number one, communication. And I think part of communication is understanding the different backgrounds. I do believe a lot of things that we do as adults, we can tie back to how we were raised as children. And maybe we were shut down a lot when it came to communication with our parents, and, our opinions didn't count. They weren't that important. So growing up with that, when you get into a marriage relationship, you tend to shut down more as well with your spouse. So it's really overcoming hurdles like that in your marriage. Enjoy your husband's strengths and accept his weaknesses. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. So I have found, for me, when I focus on his strengths rather than obsessing about his weaknesses, because as we think, it comes out, right? As we think, so we are. When I focus on his strengths, I praise his strengths, I talk up his strengths rather than nag about all his weaknesses. You didn't do this, and you don't do that, and you don't do that. Then I find that we just have a lot smoother relationship. So practical applications for this in our marriage. And remember, these are just helpful little tips I'm throwing out there. Not everything's going to work for you that works for me, but this is the way we do it. I have learned throughout the years that my husband is not a handyman. He does not like to do the honey-do list. He takes care very, very well. He does a very good job on our yard. I don't do anything with the yard work. He does all of that. He mows. We have 3 acres, so it's a lot of work keeping up with it. He's always chopping down trees, trimming trees, things like that. I don't do anything like that. But when it comes to actual honey-do lists, it's a lot easier for us to either hire it done or ask for help from someone in the church who likes doing that sort of thing. We have a couple guys around the church that I know if I asked, they'd be more than willing to help. And I appreciate it a lot. And that's something that they enjoy doing. It's maybe one of their gifts. And it's just not one of my husband's gifts. So when it comes to little things around the house that I can just do, I have learned I just don't even nag him about it. When it comes to the house, he really doesn't care if I do little projects. So rather than nag him, I will do things myself. I will hang shelves. I will change out doorknobs. I will change out light fixtures. I will put chain locks on the doors myself. I just get out my drill and I do it. It's a lot easier for us. So I could be a wife that just nags him constantly bugs him, like a dripping faucet. When are you going to get this done? When are you going to get this done? When are you going to get this done? But instead, I've chosen to find ways to work around. That's not his strength. But if I have a Bible question, I know who to go to. If I want something explained in a logical way, I know who to go to. If I want a calm look at a situation that's driving me nuts and I want advice for it, I know who to go to. So those are his weaknesses, or his strengths, I mean. So when you, I find that when you just focus on his strengths instead of obsessing and nagging about his weaknesses, it's going to improve your marriage a lot. So remember that how we think in our head goes to our heart and comes out in our actions. So if you have something running through your head all the time, my husband is so incompetent, he can't do anything around the house, I have to do everything, that's going to come out in how you treat him. That's going to come out in your words. That's going to come out in our tone. Our husbands aren't stupid. They pick up on body language and the tone of our voice. And if we're looking at them pleasant, if we're looking at them with a scowl, if we're giving them the silent treatment, which I would not recommend. I hate the silent treatment. Try never to do that. That's very passive aggressive, and it's just a very feminine, annoying trait, I think, is passive aggressiveness. So I would prefer aggressive if you're going to do anything. Be careful about becoming that dripping faucet. You know, the Bible does talk about women who are like that continual dripping. And if you know, when you're laying in bed and you're trying to go to sleep and you hear something constantly dripping, it gets really annoying. So just think of that. I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be a nag. I don't want to have that continually dripping, driving him crazy, because it will. So just don't do it. Exactly, Sarah. She said, accepting and admiring the qualities of who you married instead of the qualities you wish they had. Yes, because you chose him, good, bad, ugly, everything. And you need to make it work. You need to live out those vows in the day-to-day, nitty gritty day-to-day life. And one way you do that is by focusing on their positive qualities, not comparing, wishing they were someone else, wishing they were more this, wishing they were more of that, wishing they weren't this, wishing they weren't that, just really admiring who they are, not who you wish they were. So, sorry, I'm just reading the chat. That's funny. A lot of you are saying you married very outgoing husbands and you're an introvert. Well, it's funny because my husband and I are both very outgoing. So when we are together, even when we're driving in the car for a long period of time, maybe we're going on a trip, maybe we're going out to eat together, there's not usually quietness in the car. One of us is always talking about something. So exactly, Anne's Augustine. She said, I feel like identifying our own flaws and weaknesses can humble our outlook on our hubs as well, knowing we are not the most perfect, therefore not setting unrealistic expectations. I know I would not like being married to someone who found fault with everything I did, who constantly was nagging me, getting on to me about areas I messed up in. I prefer being married to someone who is laid back, easygoing, is hard to upset, and likes me for who I am. So if we would like that, then why are we being nasty to our husbands? Why are we being so mean to him? It doesn't make sense. Oh, I'm sorry, Yvonne. And you have a lot going on right now too. And that's kind of when I've learned, when I'm having a lot of hormonal stuff, that it's better for me just to keep quiet more than talking. Because if I talk a lot, it's going to spill out. So thank you, KJV. Proverbs 27:15, a continually dropping in a very rainy day and a contentious women are alike. Ouch. Solomon should know, because he had a lot of women he had to deal with. And you know what? Solomon didn't have a very high view of women. And I have a feeling all his 2,000, 1,000, all the thousands of women that he had were very hard on him. But I mean, one man's not going to make all those women happy. So, but yeah, most men are primarily the same. And I've often said this, most men are primarily the same. Find his love language and do it, or figure out his personality and figure out what he likes. Just love him without conditions. Don't do something for him expecting something in return. That's not how marriage is. Marriage is both of you giving 100%. It's not, well, I'm going to give you this, but when I do this, you better do this for me. That's not what marriage is. Pray for him. I think this is one of the number one things that women overlook. Pray for him every single morning when you get up before the chaos of the day. Get your Bible out, read your Bible, and then pray and put a bunch of requests in there for your husband. Lord, my husband is really struggling and taking leadership of the home. Please give him the strength. Please impress on him that he needs to, different things like that. Take it out to the Lord. Don't think about it the rest of the day. And then praise him, speak words of encouragement to him when he does step up and take leadership. And this is one area too that I've noticed. I've noticed some women have really wanted their husbands to do this, but yet when he does, and it goes against something they want, they freak out. Don't ever do that. If you really want your husband to be the leader of the home, if he steps up and makes the decision that you don't necessarily agree with, just be pleasant about it. Just listen to it. Just go along with it. You prayed for this. You prayed for him to be the leader. I've seen it so many times. Women want their husbands to be the spiritual leader, step up, take charge, do this, lead them in devotions, take them to church. But then when he steps up and makes a spiritual decision and she disagrees, because I think subconsciously she thinks she's better than him spiritually, and she disagrees, then she goes to pieces. She fights it. He's not going to do that again. You prayed for him to be the spiritual leader. Now let him lead. Let him be the spiritual leader. You don't have to agree with everything he does. If it's not in direct violation of God's word, then do it. Go along with it. So, let him be himself. Let him do his hobbies. Don't be one of these women that, like KJV put, it is better to dwell in the corner of a housetop than with a brawling woman in a white house. That poor man, let him do his thing. Let him have his interests. You don't need to be with him every minute of every day. Let him be a little bit independent. Guys, we need a little bit of alone time sometimes where we can just go out with the girls or go out for coffee, just breathe, have some space where we're not thinking so much all the time. Guys need it too. One of my husband's favorite hobbies is he likes to go out in his kayak. And when he goes in his kayak, it's a whole afternoon. So I could get bent out of shape and be like, well, you could have spent that afternoon with me. We could have gone hiking, or we could have done this, or we could have done that. But then I'm like continually dripping again, and I'm making him feel guilty for enjoying it. I think it's very refreshing to him. Men need downtime too. It's very refreshing for him to be able to go out in nature by himself, no distractions, no phone, no computer, just on the kayak, in the sunshine, on the water. That helps him, his frame of mind, especially when pastoring, when he's talking to people, sometimes all day, every day. That really, really helps his frame of mind. So, recognize that he needs some outlets too. So treat him the way you would want to be treated. If you know that you need some outlets, let him have his outlets for sure. So I like that day. She said, I like to pray when I'm doing my chores. It helps me take those negative thoughts and switch them to actually praying and lifting up my husband. I agree with the Bible reading and prayer early in the AM. I get it. I do it a lot better. I do it at night sometimes too. And that's kind of nice too. But I do like it better in the morning. I feel like it puts me in a better frame of mind. So yeah, I agree. Anne's Augustine. She said, I find it interesting when your own top love language is the least necessary of our hubs and vice versa. And a lot of times it is, because men and women are different. So a lot of times it's going to be different. I found it quite fascinating when my husband and I took the personality test. It said the last question was if you were in your ideal relationship, and it was like 10 or 12, 15, something different things. And it was like spend time with each other, initiate intimacy, hugs and kisses, physical contact, just being with each other, different things like that. It said, what would you pick? Well, we primarily picked the same, which is nice. So that's probably why we get along so well. But anyways, be honest with your husband about a genuine problem, but don't continually bring it up and bring it up and bring it up, because then you're the continually dripping, then you're the brawling woman. Just bring it up thoughtfully as you would. I feel like we get way too comfortable with our spouse and we don't treat them even with the same respect that we would treat maybe someone we don't know as well. So bring it to them prayerfully and truthfully, but kindly. I think that goes a long way when you bring it to them like that. Remember that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Now, I have, through the years, I have seen family members, I have seen friends who have decided they no longer could put up with whatever from their spouse. Maybe there was infidelity. And after repentance and trying to work it out, the husband does it again. And they said, that's it, I'm done. So they divorce him. Maybe it's not, I've seen some that were just bored with their spouse and they were done. They have told me, the ones that have gone on to get remarried after divorce have told me that if they knew what they did after this, after being married the second time, they would have just stayed with the first spouse because they found out that men are pretty much the same. So they told me that they've learned to just work through whatever problem comes up, because everyone has baggage, everyone has problems in their life, and it's better to just work through what you are going through than try to trade in your spouse for a newer model or whatever. So, but oftentimes you will find that you are trading one toxic relationship, whether you're married to someone that you deem a narcissist, controlling. Yeah, I'm not talking about abuse. Okay. I'm talking about things that just irritate you. You don't think you can live with anymore. But I feel like oftentimes they trade one toxic relationship and they go right into another. And, get help when it comes to this. If you're attracted to the wrong type of person, maybe you are in an abusive relationship and you need to leave for the safety of you and your kids. Well, my personal belief is if you leave, then you need to just focus on raising your kids for the rest of your life and be single and serve the Lord in whatever capacity you can. But I would never bring in a stepdad into that situation. Just look at the research about abuse and different, even kids that have been killed at the hand of a step parent. The statistics are pretty high when it comes into that. So I would never allow another man in the home to raise my kids, especially if you've come from an abusive situation, because chances are you're going to be attracted to that same type of guy. So I would get therapy. I would go to counseling. I would watch videos on narcissism, recognize the red flags, and stay away from anyone who exhibits those. Starting a brand new life after building one with your current husband will be very difficult and will come with a lot of baggage if you enter into another relationship. So I liked what the article that I read said, that sometimes marriage isn't for just being happy. Marriage can make us holy if we allow it to. Not any of us are going to have a picture perfect marriage in every aspect. Maybe we struggle financially. Maybe we struggle in the bedroom. Maybe we struggle with communication. there's going to be some weak area in every single one of our marriage. So instead of just throwing out the marriage and trying again with someone else, you work on the weak areas. You focus on those weak areas and work on those for the rest of your life. And you would be surprised after 20, 30 years what God can make out of your marriage if you let him, if you allow him. You know, Christian marriages should be different than the world's relationships. You know, wives should have more respect and honor than the unsaved wives do. I sure hope that I treat my husband a lot better than the heathen. When I say heathen, I'm just talking about anyone who's not saved. I sure hope that I treat my husband a lot better than the unsaved women do. You know, and we should respect our husbands more. We should honor our husbands more than any of the world does. And Angeli said, what is the best way to deal with someone who you know is looking to separate from their spouse, especially if there's a lot of toxicity? I would pray for them. I would let them know that this is what I believe, and this is what I think, but it's not my life. This is the same advice I tell other people. I believe you should stay with whoever, as long as there's not abuse. I want to keep throwing that disclaimer out there. I don't ever believe in staying with someone who's hitting you or abusing you in any way. But I do believe that in today's culture, people want to be a victim, and anyone can be a victim. And I do believe in standing against abuse and calling out abuse and not sweeping it under the rug. But I also believe that we have redefined the word abuse in many ways when it comes, I'm not talking physical abuse, when it comes to verbal abuse and narcissism, and your husband called you stupid one day because, you know, I don't know, you left your wallet somewhere and your card got stolen and someone used it, you know, and then we say we're being abused. The fact of the matter is, we all say things we regret. And you as women, I'm sure you've said some things to your husband that you wish you had not said and you could take back. And he could claim that you were being verbally abusive, you know, so we have to be really careful redefining the word. And like I said, I'm not talking about someone who's hitting you, someone who is pushing you, someone who is actually using physical violence. Not talking about that. I'm talking about declaring everyone a narcissist, you know, verbal abuse, different things like that. So for me personally, I can never condone divorce in most situations, but I will advise separation if need be, especially for safety and different things like that, especially when they have kids and things. So but yes, but yeah, husbands should love their wives more than the unsaved husbands. You know, I really hope that if a husband calls himself saved, then he is trying to follow the Bible when it says, you know, husband, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. That's a huge amount of love there, because obviously nothing rivals to the love that Christ showed us when he came to earth and died for us. But definitely keep the sin out of your marriage. My husband preached a really good message yesterday called basically the roadblocks to destruction or something like that. It was Sunday mornings. And he was talking about all the roadblocks that God puts in our life, trying to keep us from destroying our lives. And it was really good. And it started off with just our conscience. You know, we do have a conscience even before we're saved, something in us that tells us that's not right or that's wrong, you know, and as people do it over and over and over again, their conscience becomes seared, and then they start ignoring their conscience, and it gets easier the more sin that you do. And then also, you know, the Holy Spirit, after you get saved, God's law keeps us, the church, and all these different things. And the more that we go through it, the easier it becomes and the more turmoil it brings in our life. So I believe that when you bring sin into your marriage, it's going to cause more turmoil. Sin like pornography. I do believe pornography is a sin, black and white, no gray area for me. It is a sin. Pornography alters the minds of men and wants them to do more and more risque things. It's not reality at all. and it changes the minds of men. So keep the pornography out. It will affect your intimate life. It will affect the bedroom. It'll affect a lot of things. Affairs, infidelity, drinking, drugs. That's all sin that you're bringing into marriage. And as you start bringing these sins into the marriage, it's going to cause more and more and more turmoil. So keep it out, have an absolute. We will never do this in our marriage. We will never look at this together. We will never look at this alone. We will never drink. We will never bring drugs in. That's just not allowed in our home. Have lines. Our kids should be the most secure kids in the world, not raised in a home with turmoil. My heart breaks for the kids that are raised in a home where the parents are screaming and yelling and throwing things at each other, where the mom is drinking, the dad is drinking, the dad is abusive, the dad is on drugs, the dad is cheating on the mom. Christian homes should not be that way. We should be different. We should be above that. We should not allow that in our homes at all. So a lot of people like a checklist of things that I can go over, where I do not like doing a checklist, because then people go down and they think, if I do this checklist, my life will be perfect. My life will be wonderful. That's not always the case. Sin is involved in all of our lives. And sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. But some people like knowing, where do I start? Like, what can I do? What can I implement in my home, right now, today? So here are just some tips that I would give you. Number one, provide a happy home. Number one success for raising happy, well-adjusted kids is have a happy home. Eliminate yelling, freaking out, and stress. Try to get into the habit of, anytime you feel your anger bubbling up and you're about to explode, leave the situation, go to your room, shut the door, calm yourself down, and then go out and deal with it. Kids are really going to react negatively to constant yelling, and you will train them to get used to not obeying you until you freak out, not obeying you until you hit the ceiling. Learn to give clear-cut commands, say things once. If they don't do it, punish, and keep up with that for a few weeks and see the difference in your home. It'll be a huge difference. One way to provide a happy home, another way, is smile, be pleasant. Kids can tell when you're in a bad mood. They can tell when you're having a bad day. They can tell when you're stressed out. Just smile. Be involved in their lives. Get off the phone. Get off the computer. Be involved. Provide a good, healthy physical relationship with your husband. Make him happy to come home. Make him look forward to going to bed with you at night. He is the most important human in your life, and keeping him happy. And I do think that when wives provide a good, healthy physical relationship with their husband, it alleviates so much stress for them. It calms them down. It keeps them a little bit, relieves stress. Well-known studies on this, ladies. The Bible tells us not to defraud each other for a reason, and I think it is imperative to a healthy relationship. That physical relationship is very, very healthy, or very, very important. Be available to your husband, to your kids. You know what? Put up the phone. Like I said, get off the computer. And physical intimacy with your husband will bring you closer to him. There have been studies done where they've monitored brain activity or the feel good receptors in us, whatever that is. And they have found that the time when a husband feels the closest to his wife is during that physical intimacy. It's just something that men really, really need. So what's important to your husband? Food, a clean home, physical touch. I know all three of those are important to mine. So then do it. Don't be selfish. Just do it. Present your needs to him factually and articulate what exactly you want. Men need to know. They don't like this merry-go-round of not knowing what you want. They just want to know. So I know for me in my marriage, I just tell him. In fact, I've done things before like, hey, I would love it if you would stop and get me my favorite snack on the way home. And he usually does. He'll be like, okay. The other day I told him that and he forgot. And so when he got home, he realized it as soon as he walked in. So he turned around and left and got it for me. I thought that was super sweet. He actually went back to town, and we live like a good 10 minutes from town. So he went back to town to get it for me because he loves me. And it's just easier for me to tell him exactly what I want. So my nose itches today. I think there's a lot of, we're harvesting. It's harvest season in Illinois. So they're harvesting the soybeans next to our house, and I'm allergic to soybeans. So because of everything just in the air, this morning when I woke up, I sneezed like 50 times. I could not stop sneezing. And now my nose is itched like the entire day. And I think it's because of the soybeans in the air. Sarah, I've found that most men just want to be told, because they're like, there's all these memes about never knowing what a woman wants. And so that's not an issue in our marriage. I just tell my husband what I want, and I think he likes that. So then Beth asked what to do if husband is passive and not handling discipline of children, or undermining and undoing the discipline wife is trying to do and not leading the family spiritually. I would come to him one time saying, we really have this problem. I've been working with the kids all day on this. And then it really undermines my authority as mom when you come home and you just let them do the opposite, and then pray for him about it. You can't force your husband to be a spiritual leader. That's between him and the Lord. And you just keep doing what you need to do if your husband is not the spiritual leader. And that would be taking your kids to church, being involved in church, reading them the Bible on your own at home, praying with them, and then just praying for your husband, praying that the Lord impresses on his heart that he needs to step up, but you can't nag him into that position. I've seen it through the years. Women really want a strong spiritual leader. And like I mentioned earlier, oftentimes I've seen it where the woman will pray for it, and her husband does. He steps up, he makes one decision she doesn't agree with, war in the house, and he's like, that's it, I'm done. I'm not trying anymore. She can do what she wants. She can lead the home. I tried and it backfired. So be really, really careful about doing that. If you really, really want a spiritual leader, let him lead when he decides to, and back him, support him, go along with it. Because I've seen where women they want a husband who will make spiritual decisions off what they think he needs to do. And that doesn't work. You need to really let him be the spiritual leader, even if it goes against something that you think, you're praying for it. You want him there. So I can't reiterate that enough. But let's quickly go over. I spent a lot on the marriage portion. Sorry about that, because I wanted to talk about loving the kids that God has given you as well. Because the Bible does specifically say for older women to teach younger women to love their husbands, love their children. And I do find that moms oftentimes get stuck in a rut of just, my kid isn't good enough, because let's face it, child rearing has been way different than I imagined in my head. You can't even fathom what it's like to raise a child until you do it. And you discover, I did not bring a robot into this world. My husband and I may have created this child out of our love for each other, but they are not a robot. They have wills, and they have emotions, and they have different personalities than me, and they have different wants than me and different desires than me. Each kid is different with different needs. Know your kids. You can spend the rest of your life being selfish, only looking introspectively, only looking to your own needs, or you could spend the rest of your life focused on figuring out your husband, figuring out his needs, figuring out his desires. Same with your kids, figuring out their personalities, figuring out what makes them tick, figuring out different ways to approach different things in their life, different obstacles, different hardships, different struggles. And every kid is different. You created human beings with different personalities, with different desires, and with different dreams. Don't use your kids to live out your dreams. I have often seen this happen. Our kids are going to choose differently than we did, and that's okay. It's okay. My older kids might do things differently than their dad or me did. Neither their dad or I went to college. My husband did correspondence college through, I don't know, it's up here somewhere. Where is it? Some North Carolina Bible college or something, some IFB college in North Carolina. He did correspondence school through them while we were married and having kids. We were really busy. But he did it through them. We chose a different path than maybe our older kids are choosing, and that's fine. I'm still very proud of the people that my older kids have turned out to be, even if they choose a different way to get to some place than we did. So I've often found that the reason that parents are so hard on their children is that they had in their mind from the time that they were born, they had a path that they wanted their kids to take as far as like college, career, making money, when they're going to get married, who they're going to marry, all these different things. And their child's not them. Their child has a different mind, a different personality, a different heart. And maybe they choose a different way. And then the parent just, is super harsh and critical. Be careful being that way with your kids. No book can prepare you for actual life. It can't. Even everything I'm telling you can't prepare you for actual life. They're going to make different decisions than you would, and that's okay. Support them as long as they're not doing something harmful, such as blatant sin, fornicating, drinking, partying, shooting up with drugs, altering their body in some way. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about different decisions as far as what choice of work they choose to do, if they go to Bible college or they don't go to Bible college, if they want to be a nurse or they don't want to be a nurse, if they decide they want to be a doctor, if they decide that they want to be an electrician, maybe it's different than your dreams for them, but that's okay. Adult things that come along, such as moving out, college, etc. I've often heard parents, when they send their kids to college, they talk about how college changed their child and it ruined them. I don't agree with that. It will not ruin your kid. It just shows what was there all along. I've always believed that. I still believe that. Even now that I have older kids, I still believe that. It just, everything comes to the surface, right? Everything manifests itself. So if you have a lazy kid, that's going to come out in his work performance. If you have a rebellious kid, that's going to come out in how he wants to break all the rules, wherever he's at, college, military, whatever, workforce, whatever, that's going to come out. It's not that those things ruin them. It's that was there all along. Own up to your own mistakes of parenting and do better with the other kids. Most of us have big families, right? So maybe we did err in this area. You know what? Just tell our other kids, say, I really messed up in this area. I'm not going to do this with you guys. Okay. We did this with this brother or this sister. It didn't work out good. It was the wrong decision, but we're new to this. We're trusting God as we go, but sometimes we're human and we make the wrong decision. So this is where we're going to change. Don't be so prideful and just so stuck and never changing that you don't realize that you did do mistakes in some areas and you need to change that in your life. We're constantly growing as Christians. We're constantly learning new things out of God's word. We're constantly listening to good preaching. Let it shape us and mold us and change us when it comes to things that we need to change. Love your children and be proud of their accomplishments. It's okay to talk good about your kids. It's okay to be proud of them for different things that they do, whether that's when they're 2 being potty trained, or when they're 20, holding down a job, going to college, making good decisions. It's okay to be proud of them and talk about their accomplishments. Don't compare them to others. I think I see this a lot. Just the comparison game. Well, look at this person's kid. They did this and they did that. It doesn't work with our husbands. It doesn't work with our kids. It's the same concept with our kids, except their strengths and their weaknesses, because they love you. They've seen you at your best and they've seen you at your worst. They've seen you all spiffied up on Sunday morning. And they've seen you on the day when you're sick and you have curlers in your hair and you're in your bathrobe and no makeup and, drinking coffee the whole day just to get through the day. So they have weaknesses too. Be their biggest cheerleader. Our kids have so much being thrown at them, especially Christian kids. They have so much pressure, and the devil is doing everything he can to claim as many as he can, whether that comes in someone never getting saved or whether that comes in just ruining a Christian kid's life. They're being thrown everything from schools and media and cancel culture They need someone on their side cheering them along. And it's better if it comes from their parents. It's better if their parents are constantly cheering them on rather than just dogging them for every mistake, being critical, putting them down. Take their call when they call and call them. So this is one thing I've been trying to implement so far. So good. I have to drop things sometimes. I have to drop what I'm doing, but I want to take that call because you never know. Life is short and life is fleeting and we don't know what the future holds. So invest in your kids now. Take the time to talk to them now. When they move out of the house and they're at college, or they move out and they get married, take the call when they call you. You never know when that phone's going to stop ringing. So coming from someone who has lost loved ones in my life, I tell that to people all the time. Take the call, talk to them, put that time into them. Punish bad things that come up because there will be bad things that come up, but then let it go. Don't hold it over their head. I think this is very detrimental to kids. They would not hold your mistakes over your head. Don't hold their mistakes over their head. They're going to mess up. Deal with it, talk about it, punish it, whatever, and then let it go. And then just talk. Parenting is not birthing a kid and then they're on their own. It's day in, day out, talk, instill. Conversations in the car, on the phone, while waiting for something somewhere, invest. It all comes down to the time that you invest into them. So, yes, very true, Angela. She said, if you put your kids down a lot, they'll have the same attitude when they are older towards others and have low standards for themselves with partners, etc. And I've noticed too, that often kids who have very critical parents become very critical themselves. Because they are so insecure in what they are feeling about themselves, because they had parents that were constantly critiquing every little thing they do, they turn around and they do the same to other people. It's a way to make themselves feel better about themselves when they don't feel very good about themselves, if that makes sense. So checklist time. Be intentional with your children. You have to be intentional. You have to have a plan. I want my kid to be here in 20 years. What do you want? You want your kid still be in church? You want your kid to love the Lord? You want your kid to be pure and not into drugs? Then show them how to be. Take them to church every time the doors are open. You want them in church when they're 20? Make it a priority in your home. Kids tend to downplay what their parents do and not make it as big of a deal. So if you want church to be a really big deal to them at 20, make it a big deal when they're 2. That's how it happens. Talk to them about why it's so important to remain pure. Talk to them about why it's so important to never drink a drop of alcohol, why you never do drugs, you never do steroids, you never take uppers, you never do marijuana. Talk to them and then make it a hard rule in your home. We don't allow any of these things in. We don't allow liquor, hard line against liquor, hard line in my house. I will not buy it for anything, not even innocent things like making vanilla or whatever, just a hard line, because I want that so far removed from my kids' lives. I don't even want to make a little tiny exception in our home for it. I don't want them to be used to it. I want them to look at it. And if there's some place where they have to eat that has alcohol, and I want them to shudder with disgust, that's what I want. So I don't want them getting used to seeing it in my cupboards around my home. I don't want them to get used to it at all. I don't want them to get used to it, seeing it in my grocery cart or whatever. So hard line, no liquor. You have to be intentional about those things though. They learn the most through example, learn to calmly deal with things that come up so that they can learn to calmly deal with situations that arise in their life and think with a rational head and not be illogical and crazy and going to pieces. Checklist time. Number 3, pray for them. Once again, I think we downplay the power of prayer. I think if we had a lot more praying mamas, it would help our children and our families so much. Have structure and have routine. Most kids, especially when younger, thrive on structure and routine, day to day, knowing what to expect. Most kids don't like being thrown for a curveball. They like knowing, what day is it today? Oh, Sunday, we go to church. What day is it today? Monday. Oh, we do school. We play in the yard, whatever. It's kind of more of a down day. What day is it? Tuesday. Mom teaches. We do school. And then we have off the evenings to go hiking, do whatever. What day is it? Wednesday? Oh, we do music lessons, we do school, we go to church. So have a routine. And then surround yourself with families that are doing it right, not friends who are on their fifth marriage. We tend to kind of become who we are around. So if you want to have a great marriage, have great kids, have a great church life, surround yourself with those who have that. Surround yourself with older, wiser women. Surround yourself with godly women. Surround yourself with godly families. Surround yourself with godly kids. Let them be your influences rather than the unsaved coworker from work, from your husband's work, or, the block party down the street. You're going to get a lot more godly influences being around, church people and their families than you would anywhere else. Ask for advice. Find an older mentor. Don't be all creepy and be like, yeah, I'm only 20 and, you're in your 40s. You've been married for a long time and have, a lot of kids. So I'm just going to look up to you and you can tell me everything to do. And you're going to be my mentor. And, I wouldn't be creepy like that, but just try to be around them. If you have older ladies in your church, establish friendships with them. Ask for advice on different things. They've lived a lot longer than you, so I'm sure they have a little bit more wisdom than you. I like that verse. Yes. Luke 1:37, for with God, nothing shall be impossible. Beth, I appreciate you putting all these verses as I go. It's really, really nice. So thank you for doing that. Don't expect perfection from your children. Do you ever mess up? Do you ever sin? And this goes true with the husband too. Don't expect perfection. Do you ever fail? So why wouldn't your husband mess up? Why wouldn't your husband fail when it comes to things? Why wouldn't your kids? Why wouldn't they fail? Why wouldn't they mess up? Don't tear your home down in a moment of disobedience when it comes to God and to your vows. Think on decisions that you're going to make for a long time, a really long time, and make the decisions before the hard times come. Okay. 21 years ago, almost 22 years ago, I made the decision that come hell or high water, I was going to stick with Tommy McMurtry. During those 21 years, we've had so many good times and we've had bad times. We've shared loss together. We've lost children through miscarriages. We have gone through illnesses together, mainly mine. Really, the only thing that he's had is his appendix removed. So mainly my health issues, our children's health issues. We've gone through a couple surgeries together. We've gone through financial hardships, and we still do to this day. We have gone through moments where I thought to myself, what did I ever see in this man? And I know he thought the same about me. What did I ever see in this woman? We've gone through days of fireworks when it comes to disagreements. We've gone through days where we could not be more in love with each other. But before those days came of fireworks, I had decided no matter what comes, no matter what fight we get into, no matter what I think of him during this particular moment of very rapidly spoken words that we later regret, I'm going to stick by him. He is mine. I am his. We're not going anywhere. So whatever comes along, we have to work through it. When I started having children, I decided I am going to unconditionally love these kids, even if they break my heart. I am going to raise them for the Lord. And I am going to realize that they might choose differently than I would for them. And that's okay. As long as they're in the center of God's will, as long as they're loving God and obeying him and following him, I will be fine with it. We've never pushed our sons to go into the ministry or be pastors or any of that. My husband is a second generation preacher, and we have never pushed them to be the third generation preacher, because it's not about what we want. It's about them loving the Lord, following him, and doing what he wants. And that might not be for them. And that's fine. We're totally fine with that. So make those hard decisions before the hard times come. Make the decision that I am going to let this marriage not only make me happy, but make me holy. It's going to make me holy on the days when I don't feel like sticking with my vows. It's going to make me holy on the days where I choose to obey God and his word over my feelings of emotions, over my wants and desires, over my needs. It's going to make me holy when I choose to serve my husband and honor my husband and respect my husband, even on days where he doesn't deserve it, even on days when I don't agree with him, even on days when I completely think he should do things a totally different way than what he's choosing to do. But I'm going to allow God to make me holy as I lean on him. I obey him and follow his word. And I obey the vows that I took, that I chose to take. So let your marriage not only make you happy, but let it make you holy. Let rearing children and everything that comes with it not only make you happy, but make you holy as you choose to deal with your weaknesses, deal with your insecurities and faults when it comes to raising kids, and you see it manifested a million times over. Let God work through you and make you something that 20 years ago, you were like, I will never be at this place. But through God, everything is possible. So I hope that was a help. And we are going to wrap things up. I always go over an hour. So I hope you ladies all have a wonderful week. And I like this closing verse that Beth put, Jeremiah 32:17. Ah, Lord God, behold, thou hast made the heaven and the earth by thy great power and stretched out arm, and there is nothing too hard for thee. And just remember that as you go through day-to-day life, when you do want to throw in the towel and you do want to quit and you think, this is too big for me. This is too hard for me. I can't do this. Just remember that nothing is too hard for God, and he will be with you every step of the way of whatever battle you're going through, of whatever trial you're going through, of whatever the devil is throwing your way. So just remember that. But I hope you ladies have a great week. It is the most beautiful time of year here in Illinois. Harvest season is my favorite season. So I love it. And then she also put, behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me? So write those down, jot them down. Jeremiah 32:17, Jeremiah 32:27, Luke 1:37, all great verses. And then verses at the reminder, just reminding us not to be dripping faucets this week, or don't be not a dripping faucet, but a continually dripping. There it is. Don't be a continual dripping this week to our husbands. And love the husband God gave you. Embrace his strengths, embrace his weaknesses. Love the kids that God gave you. Embrace their strengths, embrace their weaknesses. Build someone up this week. Don't tear them down. So I hope that was helpful. And we will see you all next week. Bye, ladies.